Tonight, first at 9, time running out. Opposition leader requests the government to meet UN human rights commitments.
First at 9. This is Derana 24/7.
Also making headlines, human rights. UK Foreign Office says more progress needs on human rights in Sri Lanka. Dengue eradication. Prime Minister emphasizes need for proper garbage disposal system. Income tax law. Finance Minister says Parliament to vote on Inland Revenue Bill in August. And sending shockwaves across the world, a legend departs. Linkin Park lead singer Chester Bennington found dead at his home this morning. Live across Sri Lanka, this is Derana 24/7. Good evening everyone, I'm Mahesh Johnny and tonight we begin our broadcast where the opposition leader has met a UN envoy. Opposition leader R. Sambandhan says the Tamil community does not want to give the government 2 more years to fulfill commitments made to the UN Human Rights Commission. He made these remarks at a discussion with the visiting UN Under-Secretary General for Political Affairs, Jeffrey Feltman, today.
Opposition leader R. Sambandhan and members of the Tamil National Alliance held discussions with UN Under-Secretary General for Political Affairs, Jeffrey Feltman, at the UN office in Colombo today.
நல்ல திருப்திகரமான சந்திப்பு அரசியல் கர்மங்களுக்கு பொறுப்பான செயலாளராகும் எல்லா விடயங்களை பற்றியும் பேசினாங்கள். அரசியல் சாசன திருத்தம் அந்த செயற்பாட்டு தற்பொழுது வெளிவருகின்ற மந்தமான நிலை அதை துரிதமாக முன்னெடுக்க முடியாமல் இருப்பதற்கு உரிய காரணங்கள் நீண்ட காலமாக 2 பெரும்பான்மை கட்சிகளுக்கும் இடையில் இருந்த போட்டியின் காரணமாக தமிழ் மக்கள் ஏமாற்றப்பட்டிருக்கின்றார்கள். அந்த நிலைமை மீண்டும் உருவாவதற்கு இடமளிக்கக்கூடாது. தற்பொழுது சர்வதேச சமூகம் விசேஷமாக ஐக்கிய நாடு சபை இந்த பிரச்சனையை தீர்ப்பதற்கு தங்களுடைய பங்களிப்பை தாங்கள் செய்ய வேண்டும் என்று முன்வந்திருக்கின்றார்கள். ஐக்கிய நாடு சபை மனித உரிமை பேரவையில் ஒரு தீர்மானம் நிறைவேற்றப்பட்டது. அந்த தீர்மானம் முழுமையாக நிறைவேற்றப்பட வேண்டும். இலங்கை அரசாங்கத்துக்கு 2 வருடம் அவகாசம் கொடுப்பதை எமது மக்கள் விரும்பவில்லை. எமக்குள் கூட அந்த விடயம் சம்பந்தமாக கருத்து வேறுபாடு இருந்தது. ஆனால் ஐக்கிய நாடு சபை மனித உரிமை பேரவையினால் இலங்கை அரசாங்கத்துடைய சம்மதத்துடன் நிறைவேற்றப்பட்ட தீர்மானம் அமல்படுத்தப்பட வேண்டும் என்ற காரணத்துக்காக தற்பொழுது 4 மாதங்கள் கடந்துவிட்டன. ஆனால் ஏற்பட்டிருக்க முன்னேற்றம் காணாது. அந்த தீர்மானத்தில் கூட அரசியல் தீர்வு சம்பந்தமாக அரசியல் சாஸ்திர திருத்தம் சம்பந்தமாக உள்ளடக்கப்பட்டிருக்கின்றது. ஆனபடியால் இந்த தீர்மானத்தை நிறைவேற்றுவதற்கு சர்வதேச சமூகம் தன்னால் இயன்ற பங்களிப்பை செய்ய வேண்டும்.
The 2016 Annual Human Rights Report issued by the UK Foreign Office and Commonwealth Office recognises and welcomes improvements in the human rights situation in Sri Lanka while emphasising the need for further progress. Issuing a communique, British High Commissioner to Sri Lanka James Dorius said the proposal of this annual report is to draw attention to human rights issues of concern in countries around the world and to encourage progress and recognise achievements made. The High Commissioner went on to note, however, that intercommunal tension escalated in recent times and expressed his hopes that calls to address hate speech as seriously as the problem merits will be heeded.
The annual human rights report focuses on how governments around the world are working to protect and promote human rights while identifying 30 human rights priority countries. The 2016 report commends progress by the government of Sri Lanka against commitments reflected in United Nations Human Rights Council resolutions and points out that greater progress is needed. The report welcomes the encouraging steps towards reconciliation by the passing of legislation establishing an Office of Missing Persons while urging the government to begin operations at the office. The report calls on the government to repeal the Prevention of Terrorism Act and draft new counter-terrorism legislation in line with international human rights standards. It also recognises the need for further development of the police force in order to reduce the risk of human rights violations, including torture, and improving public confidence in the rule of law. The report, meanwhile, highlights the United Kingdom's continued support and encouragement to Sri Lanka to make further and faster progress on human rights.
President Maithripala Sirisena says the government restored 25 tanks in Trincomalee district in a bid to resurrect the country's historical irrigation culture. The president was speaking at a ceremony at the Kamthale Reservoir today.
President Maithripala Sirisena visited the Unit 12 tank in Gantalava with the public today. The restoration of the tank was completed under the Sirisara Pivisuma district program. President Sirisena then presented awards to 48 farmers acknowledging their service in the promotion of local food production in 2016. The award ceremony was held as part of the Local Food Production National Program.
තිරිකුණාමල දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ සංවර්ධනයට අවුරුදු 3ක සැලැස්මකට මිලියන් 5000ක් අපි වෙන් කරලා තියෙනවා තිරිකුණාමල දිස්ත්‍රික්කය. ඒ මිලියන් 5000න් මේ අවුරුද්දේ මිලියන් 1000ක් වෙන් වෙලා තිබෙනවා. ඒ මිලියන් 1000න් මේ වන විට වැව් 25ක ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණ කටයුතු අවසන් වෙලා තිබෙනවා. ඒ වැව් සියල්ලම ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණය කළේ අපේ යුද හමුදාව. ගන්තලාව යුනිට් 12 වැවට ඇස්තමේන්තුව මිලියන් 23යි. නමුත් යුද හමුදාව මිලියන් 5කින් ඒ වැඩේ ඉතාම සාර්ථකව කරලා තිබෙනවා. මේ මුළු ගොවි ජනතාවගේම මහා දුක් ගැනවිලි කතාවක් තමයි ජලය පිළිබඳව ප්‍රශ්නේ. ඒ නිසා තමයි අපි අද මොරගහ කන්ද ව්‍යාපාරයේ කටයුතු ඉතාම සාර්ථකව කරන්නේ. අපිට අවශ්‍ය වන්නේ ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන්ම කෘෂිකාර්මාන්තයේ දියුණු කරගත් කෘෂිකාර්මික සංස්කෘතියකින් ගොඩනැගුණු පරිසරයක් තුළ මේ රටේ ජාතික ආර්ථිකය ශක්තිමත් කිරීමයි.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says that the dengue crisis cannot be addressed unless a proper garbage disposal system is established in the country. He made these remarks at an event held in Colombo today.
The opening ceremony of the Colombo National Book Exhibition was presided over by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe this morning.
අපිට ඊයේ මාස දෙක තුලදී කසල කළමනාකාරත්වය ගැන විශාල ප්‍රශ්න ඇති. නගර සභාවත් පළාත් සභාවත් ආණ්ඩුවටත් දොස් කිව්වා. ඒ කෙටි කාලීන විසඳුම් හොයන්න තමයි එක එක ස්ථාන නම් කරගත්තේ. සමහර තැන්වලට ලොරි යන අවස්ථාවේදී ඒ ලොරි නවත්තන්නටත් ඒ අයට හිරිහැර කරන්නටත් සමහර අය ක්‍රියා කරා. අනිත් තැන්වල විශාල උද්ඝෝෂණ ඇති වුණා. උසාවි ගියා. අපි පළාත් සභාවක කතා කළා මහමන්තුමයි පළාත් සභාව මත එකඟ වුණා කදියාන ස්ථානයේ යොදවන්නේ. ඒක මදි. අනික්වත් උවමනයි. දැන් සමහර තැන්වල නීත්‍යානුකූල තහනමක් නැති තැන්වල අපි කසල කළමනාකාරත්වයට යනවා උසාවි නියෝගය ලබාගෙන.
Also speaking at Lanka Livestock 2017, which was worked off in Colombo today, the Prime Minister announced that the country's livestock sector will be expanded while safeguarding the small-scale farmers.
First, we have to develop the livestock development board, enable the private sector to come in, at the same time ensuring that the small farmer was not affected. This transformation has now come to a level we have to lead to full commercialization, and the board has to work together with the private sector on a PPP basis. I think by end of this month, we will be signing one of the major agreements on the development of the Hambantota Harbour, which is a sector which is ideal for livestock, dairy and poultry.
More on dengue. The National Dengue Eradication Program theme Let's Start Ourselves, Join to Eradicate Dengue was held for a second day today. TV Derana and Manusa Derana also joined hands in support of the national program and conducted a special campaign in Negombo.
In support of the government's efforts to eradicate dengue on a national level, TV Derana and Manusad Derana joined the National Dengue Eradication Program at the District General Hospital in Negombo. Officials of the National Dengue Control Unit, health officials in Negombo and staff of the Negombo District Hospital also contributed to the campaign. Meanwhile, several health campaigns parallel to the national program were held at the Maristella College in Negombo today. Accordingly, a student awareness seminar on the epidemic and an awareness march were held in the area. Another campaign was held on the premises of the Negombo fishing port with the support of area residents. Meanwhile, as part of the National Dengue Eradication Program, all television channels ran a live telecast from 10 AM to noon today.
In other local stories, State Minister of Finance Eran Wickremaratne says a rumour circulating that the government is taxing the poor is in fact a fabrication. He expressed these views at a media briefing in Colombo today. Addressing the same media briefing, Minister of Finance Mangala Samravira said the Inland Revenue Bill will be taken up in the third week of August.
The other reason for this inland revenue bill is that the revenue had fallen to such dangerously low levels as a percentage of GDP to about 12%. Now our government is determined to bring the cost of living down, but to bring the cost of living down in the proper way, not in an artificial way, by actually tackling the fundamentals in the economy. The idea is that everybody should pay tax. But this idea that we are taxing the poor is completely wrong. This is a canard being spent by the joint opposition. In fact, the tax-free allowance has been increased from 500,000 rupees to more than 1.2 million rupees. The tax rates that we are proposing here are lower, they are fair, but we want to make sure that everybody who is supposed to pay taxes will pay taxes so that others will have it. But certainly the bill is there, and we are still in the process of discussing with the different stakeholders. We are considering their views, and if there are reasonable views, we will certainly look at those reasonable views.
If we succeed in widening the tax net, then of course we can bring down the VAT and other indirect taxes, which has become a huge burden on the people.
Meanwhile, IMF Mission Chief to Sri Lanka, Jaivu Lee, said that legislation and implementation of the new income tax law will provide a stable foundation for continuing fiscal consolidation in Sri Lanka. He made these remarks during a video conference held with journalists in Colombo this evening.
At the meeting held today, journalists were given the opportunity to raise questions on the IMF's completion of the second review of the extended arrangement under the Extended Fund Facility with Sri Lanka, which enables the disbursement of $167.2 million this Monday. One of the key issues which were tabled today was the new Inland Revenue Act.
Legislation and implementation of new income tax law will provide a solid foundation for continuing fiscal consolidation. Going forward, the challenges or goal to pursue will be to make sure that further progress is made in structural reform, which again will strengthen the platform for ongoing further medium-term fiscal consolidation. That was important because we wanted the bill, we thought that it's good for the bill to have certain desirable characteristics. We have been saying that legislation and implementation will be very helpful to securing further fiscal consolidation. If there is some deviation from that, we will have to take stock and appraise the situation.
Let's change course now. The parents of university students lodged a complaint to the National Police Commission and the United Nations office in Colombo today over the recent attack at the Health Ministry premises and an attempt to arrest the convener of the Medical Faculty Student Action Committee, Ryan Jalath, yesterday.
Following a press conference held at the Government Medical Officers Association headquarters yesterday, a group of men in civilian clothes attempted to arrest the convener of the Medical Faculty Student Action Committee, Ryan Jalath. The attempt was, however, futile. The Medical Faculty Students Parents Union, Medical Faculty Student Action Committee and the Government Medical Officers Association handed over an epistle to the United Nations office in Colombo today, stating that the government is violating human rights by suppression and imprisonment of student activists.
This is a complaint against the brutal attack carried out by the police and the STF at the Health Ministry last month. But this response given by this government is very unreasonable. After that protest, they have taken that 5 students, including Lahiru Virasek, and remanded yet without providing evidence. They are planning to continue and to take more and more students abducted. So our demand is, please produce that evidence obtained from that camera recordings and should be provided to the judiciary to prove that these students are guilty. That is number one. And please stop abducting these students.
Later, the parents of the university students also handed over an epistle to the US Embassy in Colombo and engaged in a protest. Meanwhile, the Anti-Saitem Public Campaign also lodged a complaint this afternoon to the National Police Commission demanding an inquiry into the attempt to arrest convener Ryan Jalath.
Vehicle number NA0410. We asked the government and the police department to trace this vehicle. We want the police department to identify these people and divulge these things to the society so that we can get the clear picture. General Committee meeting will be held on Sunday, 23rd, and will take drastic actions from next Monday, and it will be a trade union action.
We did not hand over white vans to Gotabaya Rajapaksa in written form. Both you and I can use white vans. The government also has white vans. I have one in my ministry. Therefore, they can be used for work. If any doubts have arisen, they have to investigate the matter and should provide answers to the public. I vehemently condemn this. I called the IGP today and asked about measures that can be taken on this issue. My views is that this has been done by a few police officers with the intention of dishonoring the police. The Act of the Displaced was signed by the President yesterday, and this incident took place on the same day, so I have a doubt in this regard. The IGP said that he would take relevant action against those who were involved.
Meanwhile, the convener of the Medical Faculty Students Action Committee, Ryan Jalath, held a media briefing regarding the attempt to arrest him.
It has been revealed that the men who arrived were bodyguards and that the vehicle belongs to the Trade Ministry. Meanwhile, a protest rally was held in Maharagama this afternoon demanding that the government stop the suppression and imprisonment of university students. Preceded by a protest march, the rally was organized by several organizations including the Inter-University Students Federation and the Government Medical Officers Association.
The Inter-University Students Federation and the Medical Students Action Committee began the march from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura and made its way to Maharagama. The march was held demanding the government stop the suppression and imprisonment of university students. Members of the GMOA, trade unions and artists also participated in the march.
We did not expect such things from the good governance. We said we don't want Saitam, but they took over the hospital. Minister Rajitha can't deceive us with such actions.
The next week will be crucial for the government if they fail to identify and take action against the men who attempted to abduct Ryan. If the government is asking for a strike, we are prepared to oblige.
Let's take a short commercial break. We'll be right back. Welcome back everyone on to Business News now. The export of travel goods from Sri Lanka will enjoy duty-free entry to the United States. The Minister of Foreign Affairs announced that the US has decided to include travel goods from all GSP beneficiary countries, including Sri Lanka, in the expanded US GSP Plus scheme on July 1st, 2017. This would enable the duty-free entry of products such as bags, wallets and backpacks into the US market after being previously charged 6 to 20% of tariff. The inclusion of travel goods in the GSP is expected to help US travel goods brands and retailers to broaden sourcing options for these products. Let's take you to the stock market now. The Colombo stock market closed the week on a negative note, with benchmark indices slipping for the fifth straight session. The all-share price index closed 15 points to lower at 6,669, while S&P SL 20 index fell by 18 points to 3,819. Market turnover was 517 million rupees, with top contributors coming from John Keel's Holdings and its subsidiary Ceylon Cold Stores, which together contributed 40% of the day's turnover. Foreign investors were net buyers of 6 million rupees, with foreign participation accounting for 54% of today's activities. Now here's a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other currencies during the day today. On to sports now. Sri Lanka's fast bowling coach Champaka Ramanayake resigned from his position today, giving Sri Lanka cricket written notice. Ramanayake was reappointed Sri Lanka's fast bowling coach in May 2015 after his first stint in the position ended in 2012.
Following Champaka Ramanayake's resignation, Chaminda Vas has been appointed for the vacated position for India's tour of Sri Lanka. With less than a week to go before the opening test against India, Sri Lanka has been dealt a further blow as newly appointed Test captain Dinesh Chandimal is set to miss the game, having been diagnosed with pneumonia. With Chandimal hospitalised, Rangana Herath will lead the side in the first Test, which begins on the 26th of July in Galle. Herath led Sri Lanka and Zimbabwe last year and also captained the Test side during the recent home series against Bangladesh.
More cricket. As the Indian cricket team began its tour of Sri Lanka, Indian skipper Virat Kohli said India will not take Sri Lanka lightly in the upcoming series. The two teams will play 3 Test and 5 One-Day internationals before the tour concludes with a one-off 2020 on the 6th of September.
India at the moment, they are the #1 Test team. For us also, it's a very good opportunity. So hopefully we can have a very good 2 series.
It's never easy playing Sri Lanka in Sri Lanka, and that's something that we are aware of. We pay equal respect to any opposition because you can be a strong or a weak side, but this game is the same game. Everyone plays the same game. You still have to play with a bat and a ball.
Into international news now. Ram Nath Kovind, a low-caste Dalit politician, became the 14th president of India yesterday with an overwhelming majority, beating the Congress party's candidate Meera Kumar. Kovind's victory was widely expected due to the strength of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party in the federal parliament and state assemblies, whose members vote in the presidential election.
Ram Nath Kovind started his political career by joining India's Bharatiya Janata Party in 1991. In 2015, he was appointed as the governor of the state of Bihar. Kovind, who won 64.6% of votes in the presidential election against opposition candidate Meera Kumar, is the first BJP leader to become president and the second president from the Dalit caste after K.R. Narayanan. He will be sworn into the largely symbolic office next Tuesday.
Let's now cross over to Katharina Chang, who is at the Weather Centre with the forecast for the next 24 hours.
A very good evening and welcome to the Weather Centre. Now, temperatures may range between 21 and 36 degrees Celsius in key cities across the island. A slight change in the weather prevailing over the southwest part of the region and the eastern province is expected during the next few hours. Taking a look at the northern region, rains may continue over Putlam and Vaunia. Now, here's a look at the city-by-city forecast.
And that is a part of your world tonight right here on Other Derana 24/7. I'm Mahesh Johnny. Indiviri Amortha will join you first at 9 tomorrow. Be sure to join her then. Now, before we end tonight's bulletin, sending shockwaves across the music world, lead singer and songwriter of rock band Linkin Park, Chester Bennington, died in his home in California last night. His untimely death at the age of 41, ruled to be an apparent suicide, coincides with the 53rd birthday of his friend and fellow rock icon Chris Cornell, who also took his own life in May. So as a tribute to this great singer, we'll leave you tonight with a look back at his career and legacy. Good night.
Chester Charles Bennington was born on the 20th of March 1976 in Arizona. Bennington joined Linkin Park, then known as Zero, in 1998 and went on to become their biggest asset with his powerhouse voice.
The sky of a million stars, it flickers.
Linkin Park's debut album, Hybrid Theory, sold more than 30 million copies worldwide and remains one of the biggest selling albums released since the start of the millennium. Bennington touched millions of music lovers with his other albums, such as Meteora and Minutes to Midnight. While Bennington's vocal persona could be described as angry and harsh, in person he has been described as a warm, articulate and humorous person. He left behind 6 children and his wife, Talinda Ann Bentley. Bennington was devastated by the death of his close friend and fellow rock musician, Chris Cornell, who took his own life only 2 months ago. Bennington emulated his departed friend on what would have been Cornell's 53rd birthday.